Welcome back to What Makes That Ticker Tick. I'm your host today. My guest is Zeno Mercer, Senior Research Analyst here at VettaFi. The ticker we're unpacking today is HTEC, HTEC. It is the ticker for a pretty popular index, the Robo Global Healthcare and Innovation Index. Zeno, my guest today, where are you in the world?
Yeah, as you can probably tell, I'm not in the normal situation. I'm actually in London meeting with some partners and clients over here. It's been a great week, and but ready to get back to New York at the end of the week.
Oh, I bet. Well, thanks for joining us from across the pond. Okay, so Zeno, you know how this works. I've got 10 questions for you. It's all about the index, the Robo Global Healthcare and Technology Index. HTEC is the ticker. I want to know what makes that ticker tick. You've got 10 minutes to answer 10 questions. So 1 minute per question. We're going to talk about index use cases. We're going to talk about index construction. We're going to talk about performance. And then we get into my favorite part, specific securities in the index. I know there's about 70 in this particular index. First question over to you, Zeno. What is the objective of the index?
Right. So the HTEC Healthcare Technology and Innovation Index, which we launched in 2019, is the third index in I guess the Robo series, aims to track the global leaders and pioneers and challengers in healthcare. And so this is looking at companies that and getting exposure to some of the biggest problems of society's healthcare today. So this is companies helping tackle obesity and cancer and diabetes and other chronic diseases, and also the entire ecosystem that goes on in the back end, clinical and R&D and beyond.
Very cool. Staying on time as well, as always. Thank you, Zeno. Next question. What is the investment case behind the index? Go.
So the investment case behind HTEC is really that there is a lot of wasted spend in the world. There's a lot of unsolved need and problems. We've got an aging population. There's a shortage of skilled workers. And kind of going to the Robo namesake, we have a lot of experience in automation and process automation there. Procedures invasive, and you also have like a lack of adequate healthcare in a lot of parts of the world. So finding ways to help solve it. You also have genetic problems, chronic conditions, and other things that are just really unsolved. And the current way of solving that is obviously, I mean, you can tell the way money flows through and the rising cost of healthcare, that something isn't working right. And our belief is that companies in this index have that ability to make those positive impact and changes at the individual and the macro level.
That's some very powerful trends behind this particular index. At a high level, what makes the index different from other products in the same investment style? Like when you look at what's out there in the marketplace today?
Right. So HTEC has a modified weighting approach. So this isn't just kind of a traditional pharma or large cap weighted, pharma or healthcare delivery payvider approach. It's a very global index. So these are leading companies in areas such as like diagnostics, process automation, a lot of some public consumer friendly forward names, and also a lot of behind the scenes players. So it's really 60% large cap, 27% mid cap, and 14% small cap. And it's about 82% North America, 16% Europe. And so it's kind of a more broader approach and angle than I believe a lot of other indices would be looking at.
Very cool. And staying on time. Thank you, Zeno. Before we pivot into index construction and question 4, I do want to give a shout out to the folks at ETC. It's home of the Robo Global Healthcare Technology and Innovation ETF. Actually has the same ticker as the index, HTEC, or like we like to say on this show, HTEC. Question 4, back over to you, Zeno. What is the starting universe of the index? Like, how many names are you looking at?
Okay, so looking at the starting universe, there's actually a lot of names in here. I mean, hundreds, because we are looking at companies that are across such a variety of angles. It's not just pharma. We're looking at medical instruments. We're looking at diagnostics companies. We're looking at process automation. We're also looking at challengers in the field such as precision medicine and robotics, robotic surgery. And so there's a lot of players in data analytics and regenerative medicine. So it's a big field to scope down from and really the companies that have market leadership, technology leadership, are really, they're challengers entering the fray and starting to get that traction, and seeing impact that could cause downstream disruption to other players that are more established. So that's kind of the universe and how we cull down into it, alongside working with our advisors in the space.
I want to double click on that cooling down, and I often think about index construction through the lens of a funnel. So you got a couple hundred names that you're talking about. You mentioned diagnostics companies, data analytics companies. I've looked at the fact sheet. I see telehealth companies in there, regenerative medicine, something else that you mentioned, of course, robotics. So culling it down, what are some of the factors used to select stocks for inclusion? Like you're at several hundred that you're looking at, companies around the world. Help me understand how you cull it down.
Right. So some of that is just the way we approach all of our indices is just finding those, from a kind of like a scoring methodology, is finding companies that have revenue purity in some of those top conditions or in their niche subsectors. So we're not just looking at overall market size. We're looking at how they're playing in their field, how they're investing. Like, are they investing in the future? Or are they just resting on their laurels? Are they trying to better implement or better impact healthcare? Or are they just kind of benefiting from like a systemic problem that they're not trying to solve? So we're trying to find players that are, very impactful and positive to society. That is kind of part of the methodology. It's also, we look at their financial performance. We're looking at their growth factors and opportunities, and all these things kind of culminate into a score, and that impacts their weighting. And so that just kind of combining it all together. I mean, the revenue purity into innovation within those subsectors is probably the biggest factor in this, though.
Very cool. Very cool. Last question on index construction, Zeno. How often does the index get rebalanced? Back to you.
HTEC gets rebalanced once a quarter. And so this is a culmination of rescoring based on changing macro, micro, company specific conditions. Healthcare has a lot of stuff driving through, and the US is the biggest market. So there is like a regulatory angle, and how these companies are getting traction often depends on that. But most of the time, it's looking at in the company fundamentals. You do see M&A in the space, so that could be a change for an inclusion or kicking out based on a score change there, or it gets taken out completely by a takeout. We've seen companies, plenty of companies get taken out in that way too.
I can only imagine. It's definitely not the easiest industry to operate in. The questions are going to get tougher, Zeno, because we're going to start talking about performance measurements, and it hasn't been an easy year for performance, frankly, across the board, and we're seeing a lot of volatility lately. Question 7 for you, Zeno: how has the index performed, say, year to date, and then over a longer term since perhaps inception?
Right. So HTEC year to date is down, I think at 15 to 16% year to date, which is a little, underperforming the overall healthcare ecosystem, which is down around 6 to 7%. So healthcare itself has just underperformed this year. You've got investor fatigue from COVID. You've got normalization from COVID from some companies that rapidly expanded, and some of them landed and expanded. Some are having shifting models and kind of seeing adjustments that we're seeing elsewhere across other industries. And then obviously there's the labor shortage has had an impact this year as well. So ultimately, I mean, it's trading at some of the lowest valuations that we've seen, even peak or the trough of COVID in early 2020. So yeah, it's technically borderline, lowest valuation levels that we've seen in a very long time, if you look and backdate historically before that as well.
All right, I'm going to stop you there just so we stay on time. Staying on performance measurement, Zeno, like, what are market environments? So clearly it's a tough market environment now, but tell me about a market environment where you would see a lot of promise for this particular index, where it really bolsters the investment case and approach of the underlying index.
Right. I mean, look, there's a lot of, we've got the highest allocation to medical instruments and devices, which is connected to labor. There's oversold, maybe a little bit overhype around Wegovy and some of these other recent pharma players. And so if you kind of take a step back, I mean, there's a lot of progress and innovation. I know last question sounded very bearish, but there's a lot of positive innovation. There's new milestones. There's companies in the index that each independently are gaining steam and making moves to get more market adoption. They're getting new indications for their existing or new products. And so overall, I mean, we're obviously very bullish on the space. We know that there's a lot of stuff still to be done, and believe that technology innovation is really the answer to solving a lot of healthcare problems today.
Gotcha. And staying on time. So thank you for that. Hey, Zeno, we could always just pick tickers, that were performing well, but I think we'd only be looking at half the story of what's going on in the markets. One might argue now's a good time to buy the HTEC index or invest in something like the HTEC index. Okay, you have 2 more questions. You're doing a great job as always. I do want to get into my favorite part of the show of what makes that ticker tick, the underlying securities. I want to talk about what's inside. You got 2 more questions to go. You're live from London. Can you talk about some of the constituents in the index? Like, give me some specific names, maybe household names, maybe lesser known names.
Okay. Yeah. So the way that we have modified equal weighting, I do want to preface with this is that, no individual company is going to make the index. It's not overweight. No companies are over 10% or anything close to that. But so looking at by subsector and the best in class players in each subsector. As an example, in genomics subsector, you've got companies like Illumina, which is the global leader in DNA sequencing, and that's being used for labs for, if you reverse engineer the process of which innovations happening in labs and clinical diagnostics, they're a player in almost every single one of those labs. You've got Natera, you've got Twist, which is actually synthesizing and making DNA and RNA printing for synthetic biology and pharmaceutical and use cases. Medical instruments, I know I might go a little over on this one, but there's the medical instrument side. You've got Dexcom and Insulet, which have been hit recently from the aforementioned kind of Wegovy and Mounjaro impact. But and that feels very oversold. But you also have kind of 3D systems, which is looking at bioprinting organs for testing, and you don't have to test on animals anymore. They can actually print, and then eventually that could go into actual potentially organs. So there's a lot of companies that have existing business use cases, but they have these like really, what we're looking at is like, are they investing in inventing the future of healthcare? So there's a lot of access there too that are really exciting. I mean, I don't think people really understand the impact of what these technologies will have on healthcare if and when they come to fruition. I mean, each one of these is at a different stage. In fact, I mean, I think, the Intuitive Surgical, this surgical robot company, they've got placements all over the world and continue to innovate in new ways of impacting healthcare and surgical operations. Yeah. So
Gotcha.
I think we're way over there. Sorry.
Yeah, you went a little bit over, but you actually tackled the final question, which was a lesser known company. Can you just tell me the name of a lesser known company?
So this might not be lesser. The product isn't lesser known, but the company's Exact Science, and this is it's diagnostics company, and it's the maker of Cologuard, which you've probably seen a commercial for recently. Yeah. But really, they're a pioneer in minimally invasive diagnostics. So most people might know Cologuard for the colon testing, stool sample collection, and it sounds really simple. I mean, there's a lot that goes into it. There's a lot of testing. There's genomics on the back end. And they're also pioneering and working on other products as well. So they're not just limited to Cologuard. They've got a portfolio, and one of the leading causes and reasons why cancer is so dangerous is because late stage, like we live in a society where we still have too many cancers caught in late stage, and this company is actually making it easier. Also, they're working on like blood testing and working in that angle. So a lot of innovation coming there. They're continuing to get new approvals, and they're upgrading their products. So one that we're really excited about.
Very cool and well timed, giving it's October and Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and God, we could do so much more, and a lot of doing more is catching cancer early on. It definitely makes a difference. Zeno, as always, it's great to have you on the show, senior research analyst here at VettaFi. Thank you for unpacking the HTEC index with me and helping us all understand what makes that ticker tick. If you'd like to join me and Zeno in person, come on down to the Exchange Conference. We have a lot of content that's built specifically for the financial advisor community. It'll take place February 11th through the 14th down in beautiful Miami Beach. And I will be there and Zeno will be there as well as everyone else. Thank you so much, Zeno, for joining us. Until next time.